It's Money Matters, an NSCC financial literacy podcast situated in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And now here's your host, Matt Curry.
Hello and welcome to Money Matters Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Curry. Am I a financial expert? Heck no. But I do know a few things, and I know people who know a few more things, and that's what this podcast is about, connecting all those pieces together. So spring is around the corner, and with spring come many things, including tax season. And so in that vein, I would like to welcome a special guest to today's NSCC Money Matters podcast, Teresa Smith, who is a spokesperson for CRA. Welcome, Teresa.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt.
Can you just tell me a little bit about your role with CRA and a little bit about CRA in general, what you do?
Sure. So I'm a spokesperson for the CRA, which means I get to talk on TV and radio and with people like yourself about taxes. And I know that's not everybody's favorite topic. But hopefully I show that CRA is more than just collecting people's taxes, which we do, but that's only one side of our mandate. So, it's equally as important to us that people get the refunds and the credits and the benefits that they're entitled to. So I would say that a big part of my job is actually just sharing with people what they need to know to make tax time as simple as possible. So, I talk about things like filing electronically is the quickest way to get your taxes in, or, sharing advice about how to protect your personal information from scams and frauds. Or even how we've been improving our self-service options so that they are the quickest and easiest ways to get the reliable information that you need when you need it. Essentially, my job is really just about helping people, and it's really always nice and so rewarding to connect with people and answer questions and really just help people along their financial literacy journey. And that's why I'm so happy to be here chatting with you.
And I'm glad that you touched on it in the beginning, Teresa, because I know, taxes can be overwhelming for some, and you mentioned part of your role, you try and educate folks on how to kind of be mindful about what they're claiming and things like that. So when it comes to tax preparation, thinking about students, do you have anything specific that you'd share by way of tips for them?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For students, there's so many. There's claiming the interest that you pay on student loans, or say you moved for school and you also got some scholarships and bursaries, you may actually be able to claim those moving expenses. Matt, shameless plug, we also have our own podcast. It's called Taxology, and we actually have an episode dedicated to students, and it's full of really great information. And, we'll make sure, I guess, the link for that is in the show notes. But I would say the main one for students that every student should know about is your federal tuition amount. So that's the main one, and it's amazing. So basically how it works, while you're in school every year, you're actually building up a bank of these tax credits. And you can kind of think of it as a stash of tax savings that can help you reduce taxes that you might owe. And while you're in school, you might not actually be earning that much money. When I was a student, I know I wasn't. So you may not owe taxes while you're in school, but that's not a problem. So that bank of credits will stay there until you're ready to use it. So when you leave school and you start earning that big paycheck at your dream job, you can use that bank of credits to zero out the money that you might owe, which can be a really huge help in that first couple of years just starting out. So that's great, but it gets even better. So even if you don't need that full stash of credits on your taxes for 1 year, whatever's left over, those unused credits actually roll forward for the next year, and they keep carrying forward, they never expire. And so while you're studying, you're actually also setting yourself up for some pretty nice tax breaks for down the road. And I think for everybody, one of the tax tips that I also have is that the earlier you start to prepare for tax season, the smoother the process will be. First day that you can file your taxes is February 23rd, and you'll have until April the 30th, the deadline to get it in on time. But there is one thing that you can do right now to get ready. Some of you may already be familiar with like the CRA account. It's where you can log in and you can check the status of your refund and see your tax slips and
Right. Yeah.
tax returns and all that good stuff. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
called My Account. So starting February, so new for this year, you'll be required to add multi-factor authentication to your account, and that will keep your account safe and prevent you
Yeah.
from getting locked out. So you'll want to start, log in, get that set up and out of the way before tax time so that you're all good to go. You're also going to want to make sure that all your information in there is up to date. So, checking your mailing address, your phone number, email, and especially your direct deposit. You're going to want to make sure that if you're expecting money, that the right direct deposit information is online and so that it gets to you without, any problems. And if you do need to make any changes, then you can just hop in and do that yourself there. And if if there's anybody listening that maybe doesn't know like what I'm explaining or talking about, it might be that they don't have My Account. So, I'd really encourage you to do that now. Again, before filing season gets really busy, you can head over to our webpage on how to get set up with a My Account.
And really great to know about the building up of the credits piece. I know one of the challenges in graduating year is, getting a job, and that's exciting. But oftentimes, the entry level roles you don't start out making the most in the beginning, and then you're also faced with paying back loans, and so every little bit kind of helps, especially at that time. I remember when I was a student, I used to use my tax returns to pay down my student loan. So it was a great chance to kind of do a lump sum payment. So that's one idea or tip that I would share. When it comes to taxes, Teresa, are there any like misconceptions about tax preparations that folks should be aware of?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one of the biggest ones is that people might think that filing taxes is really just for people who work full-time jobs or who have like a higher income. But really, the truth is everybody should file their taxes, even if they didn't earn a lot of money. For example, for students, or part-time workers, there's still, refunds or benefits or credits that you might get, like the Nova Scotia Affordable Living Tax Credit or the GST, HST credit. But those are things that you only get if you file your return, and taxes doesn't have to be complicated or even, expensive to do. That's not true. CRA has put a lot of effort into making our services, like our website, like My Account, more user-friendly. And a lot of people might not know this, but on our website, you can actually find software to file your taxes for free. And we also have information on tax clinics in your community where a trained volunteer will do your taxes for you for free. And actually speaking of clinics, I know I have to give a shout out here, but I heard that Ivany Campus, they have their 7th year, I think, doing tax clinics on campus,
Oh, wow.
which is
that's great.
amazing. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
So those volunteers are trained by the CRA. So, even being a volunteer, that's a really great way to learn about taxes. So, whether you are getting that tax help or giving that tax help, there's a real benefit there. And that's the thing too. As you learn about your taxes, if you ever find out about a tax credit that you didn't claim, or, you forget a receipt that you had after you've already sent it in, or even if you've, not filed, you've skipped a couple of years, like that doesn't mean that you have to miss out. Like you can still file those returns, you can make that adjustment and still get the refund and the benefits and the credits that you would have been entitled to.
That's great. And those are great tips. And I'm really glad that you mentioned the tax clinic. Any Ivany students or any other students that are listening, definitely check your campus events to see if there are tax clinics happening on campus or
100%.
check in your community. Yeah, great tip. Where else could students go for help, Teresa?
Well, I would always say My Account is going to have all of the information that you're going to need. So anything that you would normally get as a tax slip to do your taxes in the mail from your employer, on your My Account, all of those slips are also there. So that's kind of like your one stop to get information. And then we also have the autofill service. So it'll kind of populate the return with information from those slips. So it really makes it easy, especially for students who might just have like one T4 or, something that, shows they got a scholarship. You can probably do your taxes in less than 20 minutes.
Wow, doesn't get much easier than that, does it? Anything else you want to share before we end this interview?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway here is that I'd like for folks to kind of just think of it this way. Getting familiar with filing your taxes is just another piece to becoming financially literate. Taxes doesn't have to be this adulting thing that you do once a year where you're crying over like a pile of receipts. It literally pays to do your taxes, like literally. I think last year the average refunds was around, a little more than 10,000 or 10,000, my gosh, $2,000, when whether you're a student or not, that's pretty decent. So,
Yeah.
Even for myself, I kind of learned that the hard way. Before working at CRA, I was a student. I remember having to file my taxes on my own for the first time. And the only reason I did it was because I needed that income verification for a student loan. I wasn't even going to do it. So I needed that notice of assessment. And the only way I was going to get it was if I filed my taxes. I remember thinking, it's kind of scary. What if I make a mistake? But it was pretty quick and easy. I got a little refund, which I was surprised by. And then I even got a couple of GST checks throughout the year. So I realized it was more than just getting this like piece of paper that I needed for a loan or for housing. I was about to leave real money on the table. And so I realized that, if I just learn a little bit more, that could really just mean money back in my pocket. And like you said, like every little bit helps. So that really kind of changed my view on filing my taxes. And again, we have a lot of self-help resources for folks. I mentioned my account. We have our website. We also actually host live webinars where you can ask questions in real time. And then we keep those recordings for viewing afterwards. There's one on students as well. And, as you get set up as a student, you're getting familiar with these things, you're going to eventually progress through life. You get that first job, maybe you start a business, maybe you move. And so kind of getting exposure as you go through different life milestones will help you understand the different credits that you might be entitled to. Your life will change, but then your tax situation will change. So, right now, actually on our website, we have, on our social media account, we have a really cute series that we're doing about two students who fall in love and then they start discovering the tax credits and benefits that are available to them as they go through life. It's kind of cute. It's on our Instagram. So yeah, I would say that you can look at my example, like the irony is I was, once in their shoes and worried about taxes and felt like it was kind of scary. And, now I'm a CRA spokesperson and, I'm just here to say that it's actually not that scary.
And you're right. It's important to definitely don't leave money on the table, as you mentioned. And taxes aren't as scary as one might think. And there's lots and lots of resources available to support you. So thank you for highlighting some of those, and we'll refer to them in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Teresa, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
And maybe you'll come back again sometime.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to Money Matters with Matt. I hope you learned something new. If you've got an idea for a topic for a future episode, drop us an email at awards@nscc.ca. You can also send us a question there and we will answer it in a future episode. Any resources or links that we discussed during this episode are available in the show notes. Thanks. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Money Matters, an NSCC financial literacy podcast. Make sure to subscribe to NSCC's YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode. Until next time.